because that would build up strength. Do weight training, swimming, and bicycling on top of it.
Now, did you find that swimming and cycling was a good addition to the training because of all the pounding of running 110 miles per week? Did you use that as an addendum or something to really, not an addendum, excuse me, as a supplement to your training, or did it actually replace running?
No, never replaced.
Mileage?
No, you had to put the mileage in. The problem is that I kind of started late running. I was like 24 when I started running, okay, and I ran for other sports, but as far as competing in races, I was like 24, which is like really old, okay? So the bottom line is I would break down at about 90 miles a week, so I felt that I had to supplement it with other forms of aerobic activity.
And you mentioned something very important. You said you found it late. You said you were about 24?
Correct.
You said, we talked to Michael Wardian, a big name in ultramarathons and marathoning over in Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah.
He didn't find running until really his tail end of college. And so he was about 20 himself, and usually people running 220s in the marathon are guys who've been running for a very long time. What made you find running? What got you into running in the first place?
Well, I used to, back in the day I was involved with karate. In fact, I went to California to turn pro for a while. I was a kickboxer. Moved back here, and I just did a marathon once and did like a 3:20, I think it was, and Steve Rosaska was a friend of my dad's, and at the time I think he was VP of the Baltimore Roadrunners Club, and my dad told him, Steve said, well look, you know, that's not too bad for a first race, okay, and never done it before, why don't you come out and try one? And my father kept prodding me, you know, it took him about maybe a month or so to prod me to do it, and I fell in love with it.
So the marathon was your first race?
Yes, it was.
So you hadn't run a 5K even for fun, or a 10K or anything?
No.
Did you mix in 10Ks and maybe races that were still long distance but not quite the marathon level?
Yeah, when you were training for a marathon, I would use the 5, 10Ks to go gear up for it. The only problem is I didn't like to do a lot of them because it would also hurt your mileage. If I did like a 10K, I'd have to back off for a couple days, you know, so I'd do it once in a while. And if I did a 10K, I'd make sure I'd warm up good beforehand and probably do another, try to get at least 18 miles at the end of the day.
Back then there was a lot of 10Ks and 8Ks around. You can barely find any anymore.
That's a shame.
And back then also when you run a 10K, if you didn't run 33 minutes, you didn't place in a top 10. Was that competition in all those races make you work harder for the marathons, or did you find that the tough competition in the shorter races was a detriment to you?
It wasn't. I don't think it was a detriment, but I enjoyed both. I think the best race for me, genetic-wise, was the half marathon. I think I had a PR of like a 107. Okay, for the half. But I enjoyed them all. You know, I just enjoyed racing.
The Constellation 10K downtown. How was that? How did that race sit with you?
Well, that was never my best race because my running style, was I'd go out hard. Okay, I'd go out hard for the first mile and try to sustain it. Okay, because I didn't have the kick speed at the end. That wasn't developed young when it should have been. So my forte was I had strength. Okay, so I'd go out at about a 4:45 pace on that course and try to sustain it as long as I could.
All right. Well, Greg?
Well, yeah. I mean, the cool thing is that you mentioned that you actually had people to run with. You know, there's people running 33 minutes for a 10K when you hop in that race. Sometimes you don't just see that kind of level of competition nowadays. Do you ever look up results for local 10Ks, 5Ks, and see these times and just think, you know, how would these guys stack up against me and my competitors if they were running?
Well, I can't do that for the marathon, and when they print them in the paper, I can do it. I generally just don't try to seek them out, but I do think, you know, where would have I finished in this race? You know, approximately how many people would have beaten me, kind of thing. Sure. Yeah, it's nice to compare.
I'm looking at one of the old 1980 10K races, Constellation 10K. 10th place in that race was 31:57, James Lears. I think you ran 33:45 that day, Harry.
Well, that was probably one of my worst races. You know, I did have some bad. See, the thing is, I would go out hard and try to sustain it. There were a couple times where I'd blow up, and I know one constellation, I ended up not finishing. Okay, because I would just go out as hard as I could and try to sustain. I call it redlining the whole way. That was my running style, and most of the times I beat both him and his cousin, Jim and James Lear. Ran against him a lot of times, and you know, 99 times out of 100 I win. But that was a bad race. But if you want to bring that up, that's fine.
Sorry. Bottom line is you really don't see times like that in the Baltimore area anymore. But anyway, theme of today is Baltimore road running. Road running, past and present. We're talking about how the landscape has changed. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Dave Verdan, a 1:05 half marathoner. He's a local Baltimore resident as well. Teacher at Garrison Forest. We're going to talk about how he manages his time and still training at the elite level. Stay tuned.